I'm gonna share my screen if everybody's here.
All right. I think we're just going to start off by welcoming everyone. Thank you guys for coming. We do want to give a special shout out to our guest host, our guest expert, Alana Cohen, and thank you for being here. The overall goal of this workshop is to kind of just bring attention to climate justice and the Climate Justice Action Group has worked really hard on this, so I'll leave it to you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Mohammed Islam. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a rising senior at the Baccalaureate School for Global Education. Today you'll learn about politics and corporations and how they play into environmental justice. You'll participate in different activities and games to broaden your understanding of climate justice.
Meet the presenters. Everyone introduce themselves.
So Muhammad already introduced himself, so I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Nika. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to be covering the solutions part of this presentation. Who's going to go next?
Hi, my name is Sama Rodriguez. My pronouns are she and her, and I'll be talking about the politics later on.
Hi, my name is Pragim Tiwari. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to be talking about the legislative policies that we are currently drafting to fight climate change.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Monterosa, and today I will be doing the introductory slides with you guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nina, and I'm going to be talking about companies and their damage later on.
Hello, my name is Dimitri. Pronouns are he, him. I'm going to be talking about the relationship between capitalism and climate change.
Hi everyone, my name is Muhilan. My pronouns are also he, him, and I'll be talking about the corporations part.
Hi everyone, my name is Eliza. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be talking about the solutions.
Hi everyone, I'm Matej Schmelke. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to be talking about policies that we can do to affect climate change.
So now we'll be doing an activity using Padlet. So we're going to send the link right now so you guys can join and answer the questions.
Okay, so the first question you'll see is, do you think climate change is important? Why or why not?
So we have a few answers coming in. So someone says yes, because we only have one Earth and we are ruining it. Yeah, I agree. I think this is an important issue because it affects the future survival of the planet and ecosphere. Yes, because for long we won't be able to inhabit the planet we live in. Definitely, because it is the greatest compounder of structural inequalities and injustice to our world. Yeah, and last. Climate change justice is crucial to ensuring a future for our planet and the countless generations of people to come. Definitely, I agree. As for the next question, did you experience anything as a result of climate change? Someone says, I have heard about the rising sea levels and how they affect wildlife. Yeah, it's very concerning. And nothing personally, okay. A loss of future as a young person. Okay. Nothing myself, but I've heard about it. last but not least, what do you think needs to happen for climate change to decrease? I think that we need more laws to target climate change. Yeah. Find more effective ways to stop climate change. Massive system to shift from a racist fossil fuel economy to regenerative to just one to a just return. Effective policies, more policy regulating companies. So a lot of it's do with policy making and government.
Okay, yeah, I agree with like all the responses, and you'll be learning more about get through our presentations, and you'll be learning about the policies that are currently being instated or will be instated, hopefully.
Yeah, so this is environmental protection legislation. And so we're going to be looking at 4 laws. You might have heard about some of these. It's the 2019 US Green New Deal, the 2021 Infrastructure Bill, the 2015 Paris Climate Accord. This one's really famous. And the 2019 European Union Green New Deal.
Okay, so first up is the 2019 US Green New Deal. There's been a lot of talk about this in the news, so you probably heard of it somewhere. So it's basically a massive policy bill. This is like one of the biggest bills that's ever been introduced that provides a framework for dealing with the effects of climate change. So it would create millions of new green energy jobs. It would invest millions into infrastructure and focuses mainly on making the US carbon neutral, which basically means it wouldn't put any carbon into the atmosphere, only take it out. So some of the cons about this bill, some claim that the plan is simply too expensive. It is one of the most expensive bills ever introduced. It has a price tag of around $3 trillion. It's scarce on details in some of the areas of how to achieve its goals, and it relies on technology that hasn't been created yet in some cases. So, and this is another major bill in the US, is the 2021 Infrastructure Bill. This was recently proposed by President Biden. It's not entirely focused on climate change, but a big part of it is focusing on dealing with its effects by investing millions into new energy sectors of the economy to create green new jobs and modernizing the nation's infrastructure, because a lot of it was created decades ago before we knew about the damages it causes to the environment. So it wants to create new technology to take that damage that is caused out of the atmosphere. So the bill has also been called too expensive by many, and it's hard to pass because Congress is so divided. I mean, you see that in the news, they can barely agree on anything. So it's really hard to get that bill passed.
Yeah, so this is a really famous one, the Paris Accord. Everyone's heard of it. And so basically, the Paris Accord is the only legally binding international legislative agreement regarding climate change. So there are many countries who are trying to tackle their own carbon footprint themselves, but the Paris Accord is the only one that's working on this on an international scale. And it's signed by a lot of countries, so 195 countries, which is more or less about 97% of all countries that are recognized. And it promises to limit the effects of global warming and encourages investment in renewable energy. This is basically trying to reduce the carbon footprint, because if we invest more money into renewable energies, we'll make it more efficient and cheaper, so people will adopt it more. Many people oppose the policy because it can cut jobs, and that's one of the reasons there was so much argument about President Trump and the Paris Accord, because he just believed it was too expensive, and he believed it was cutting down jobs, and he believed that the United States was being affected negatively by it more than other countries. And so it is difficult to enforce as well. The massive scale of the policy, because it affects 195 countries, it's just massive, and so it's really difficult to enforce it and make sure everyone's following all of the legislation. And it affects separate countries differently. So this was one of the major complaints President Trump had, was that the Paris Accord impacts different countries differently. So the United States, for example, is a richer country. So the Paris Accord expected more from it in terms of reducing the carbon footprint. And if you look at other countries that are developing or underdeveloped countries, the Paris Accord didn't affect them that much. And some also just claim that it's not enough. It's not aggressive enough to tackle global warming, because it tries to help global warming, and obviously any start is essential, but it isn't taking as aggressive steps as we might need because of the way we're polluting the environment. So the 2019 European Union, I missed the word union there, but the European Union Green New Deal, this is actually surprising because most people don't know about this. I think like the American Green New Deal is like the buzzword, and people just forget about the rest of the world. The European Union Green New Deal ensures that the European Union will become carbon neutral by 2050. And one of the great things about this is that, as we talked about, the United States Green New Deal, it is very it's in its early stages. It hasn't been uh, enforced, and it's not very effective today. And we have hopes for the future, but it hasn't done anything today. The European Union Green New Deal was passed in 2019, and it promises the EU will be carbon neutral by 2050. Carbon neutral basically means that the amount of carbon that you are polluting into the environment, you are basically doing none. And in fact, some estimate that the EU might even become carbon positive, which means that it has a positive impact on the environment. So the EU, 2050 is basically a long time. It's 30 years. But then the EU also is trying to cut down all carbon emissions by 55% in the next decade. So this is more aggressive steps. And so basically, just much like anything, starting is easier than finishing it. So we're trying to get 55% of all carbon emissions cut down within the next 10 years, so we can slowly try to get 100% in 30 years. But the European Union Green New Deal obviously only impacts European Union countries, which is like almost all of Europe, excluding like Switzerland and some other places. But it's only affecting a very small amount of countries in the grand scheme of things. And so many argue that this will only affect the European Union, and it won't have that big of a deal because we need a more global approach to tackle climate change, particularly because the European Union, although it is a big polluter, it isn't the biggest. You know, those are China, India, the bigger countries. And so, yeah, some argue it won't be very effective, and that's the EU Green New Deal.
So, after hearing about all these policies, we kind of want to have a discussion with you guys. Do you think any of these policies should be implemented? Do you guys have any proposed policies? And do you think the current policies we have in place are effective enough? So, leave it in the chat or unmute, whatever you want to do.
Me, I'm I'm in support of natural conservation, not the mainstream climate change activism that's promoted in America. I would say that climate change is important to the extent that you need to obviously conserve the state of the earth so that it doesn't change as greatly. But I don't think that climate change is as serious as some people make it out to be, as if we're gonna all die in like 9 years. People have been saying that the world's gonna end at 2000, 2012. And I think each time people say that, I just tend to not believe it.
Yeah, if I could respond to that. Basically, I think the people who are trying to scare people into climate change are just as bad as the people who don't admit climate change exists. Because as you said, you know, there were fears the world will end in 2012, 2011, and it hasn't happened because they were just exaggerating to get people's attention. But I think we need to realize that climate change is a real issue, but we can't get that by misleading people. People need to understand the real consequences, and that's what we're trying to do through this presentation.
So I wanted to say, sorry, my internet was cut down or something happened. But I wanted to say that since new laws like that support the usage of renewable sources for energy, I believe those laws and policies, they are really good because like we have to reduce the amount of fossil fuels we use, because like fossil fuels are the main CO2 producer, the main carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas producers. So with that being said, fossil fuels they cause a lot of global warming, and so global warming has a real big effect on our pretty much everything, like even economy, market crashes, and famine, and also like multiple illnesses could be affecting us in the future and everything. So I believe that these policies are really good, and especially since we have to hold people accountable, the people that have been causing this for such a long time, because like I don't know, like ever since I'm not sure what time frame it was, but like 1970s, 80s, or I don't know when, but like um I know 30 plus years for sure. the oil industry has been like studying global warming, and even though they knew the effects of global warming and how much it could cause famine and the loss of species and life and the preservation of life, how it could impact all of these things, how it could impact the world negatively, they still continue to produce more and more oil just for the sake of making more money and economic incentives. And so um, in 2018, they still wanted to produce way more oil. I don't know what the data, what the hard numbers are, but like it was a big amount, like a big increase from previous years. So we're only increasing our well, in some industries we're increasing our carbon footprints, in other we're diminishing it. But like in the oil industry, which is um which affects climate change overall a lot, um we are making it worse. And so yeah, we need to be more proactive and more act with more efficiency when it comes to these policies and these changes.
I was gonna say that like I honestly do think that climate change is like a really big issue, and just because like some of us might not see it happening, which is maybe like how it's actually affecting people, their homes, the environment, animals are literally dying every day. It doesn't mean that it's not an actual issue, and I think that's why people are sometimes so ignorant because they don't see it with their own eyes. And so I think that's why we need to raise more awareness and educate more people on these situations, especially in schools, because we want this, like, we want to help climate change to like decrease so that the future generations can, still have a future, better said. But also maybe like implementing policies that can really enforce people to not pollute, because there's a lot of pollution everywhere, like wherever I mean, I've gone to the beach before and there's like a lot of pollution in the water and it's very disappointing to see. So also implementing policies that have to do with pollution. But yeah.
That was great.
I
Everyone made
just
some amazing. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. We kind of we're getting a little short on time here, so we have to move on.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But everyone made some amazing points, and Randy was talking about corporations, and we're actually going to go into that now about the effects of corporations on the environment. So
Yeah, so here we'll start off with the Kahoot about companies and their damages. So I'll share my screen. Could someone else share it? My computer's being really slow.
Can somebody explain what we're doing while y'all are still setting up?
Yeah, so the Kahoot is going to be about just facts about companies and damages they're doing to the climate and their emissions, their carbon emissions, and we're just going to see what you guys know. So, yeah.
Go ahead, continue to fully explain how to participate.
Oh yeah, you can. The instructions are on the screen, but you just go to kahoot.it and then you put in the code.
Okay. Kahoot.it. Mhm. And now it says,
Could you guys play the music background? It's so catchy.
I think you need to share sound for that. So whoever's sharing screen, if you want to share sound.
Okay, is everyone? I think we're almost just like, depending on how many people
I can't hear it.
want to log in. Okay, is everyone that isn't in the climate group in?
I think you
Oh
can
yeah, I
move
can
on.
hear it. I can hear it. Turn it up.
Just to let you know that you can move on and people could join in later, so you don't have to hold up your workshop for people to join.
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question, since 1998, just 100 companies have been responsible for more than blank percentage of the world's climate emissions. Yeah, 71. Which is surprisingly high for just 100 companies, considering, like everything considered. Okay, a group of 15 food and beverage companies generate more greenhouse gas emissions annually than which country? So this was something that was pretty surprising to me when I researched it, because generally we were thinking about this from the perspective of oil companies, but there are also other companies like food and beverage companies that also agriculture, and like cattle agriculture that also have a lot of emissions, and they create a lot of emissions. Okay, so this is a true or false. Yeah, this one was pretty obvious. We'll get more into this when we talk about it in our slides after. Okay, so crude oil is turned into petroleum and used to make gasoline and other products such as so yeah, there's a lot of products that are created from petroleum. If you search up the list, there's a huge amount of products from ranging from gasoline to motor oil to a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, in the 2020 general election, oil and gas companies donated around like $5 million to both candidates combined, and that they also donate a lot of money to Senate campaigns and things like that. So yeah, this one's pretty stark. There are like contributions from the renewable energy sector, but they like pale extremely in comparison to the contributions from the fossil fuel industry. Three more. GHG is greenhouse gas. Yeah, 5.9 billion metric tons. And by federal lands, the government basically gives oil and gas companies permits to drill on land that belongs to the government. And there's no question of that happening. Okay, yeah, this is false. Because I think Biden said that he would reduce the number of permits he gave, and they were reduced for a little, but then in the later months of the year, they like really spiked, which is so. They were fined. This was the largest. So 900,000 was the largest fine for water contamination in history, and Chesapeake Energy can make this back in blank hours. So yeah, it only takes 3 hours for the largest fine in history to be made back by a company that was sued for water contamination. And yeah, probably in the chat that just shows how inaccurate. Yeah, so we're actually going to talk about this later. And I think that was the last question, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to focus in on some specific companies, and I think
So, are you surprised by what you learned in Kahoot or anything? Hey, so not really. Yeah, most of you seem to know what you were doing. So I just want you guys to think about these questions while we're going through these three specific companies, oil companies. So what are some oil companies you know? You can just drop it in the chat for now. And then I also want you guys to think, who drives the school? Just raise your little Zoom emojis. So let's We're in New York, so I don't expect it to be that many people. And then also while we're talking, I want you guys to think, do you think the fossil fuel industry supports the issue of climate justice? Do you expect them to support it? Why do you expect them to? Why do you not expect them to? So you can also drop this in the chat as we talk. So the first company, somebody said this in the chat already, Exxon. So Exxon is an everyday gas station merged with Mobil, and it was caught making people doubt scientists and climate change's reality. So you could just raise your Zoom emoji hands if you've seen these just passing by or anything. So Exxon's Mobil net greenhouse gas emissions total 120 million metric tons of carbon dioxide as of 2019. And so this was a reduction of 3% from the previous year. And so they found out that carbon dioxide affected the climate and the environment since 1957. And so even since then, in 1968, they were warned about the rises in CO2 that could melt ice caps, increase sea levels, and increase plant photosynthesis and everything, and much more. And so warning after warning was made, but Exxon kept going, and CO2 levels kept rising, and Exxon's annual profit also kept rising. And then even later on, they created the Global Climate Coalition. And so this was created to oppose mandatory reductions in carbon emissions. And so they misused data claiming that fossil fuels may not cause global warming, and they were fueling these climate deniers as just so that their growth plan for expanding fossil fuel production would continue. Like, I think Randy previously said this, he was like right on the money. They wanted to continue their growth in oil and getting fossil fuels, and so they misused some data that they collected to get people to think otherwise. And so Exxon was exposed, and people are still waiting for them to join the fellow companies to cut their carbon emissions by 2050.
Okay, so another mega corporation is Shell, and they also emit a lot of metric tons of CO2, and they're by themselves responsible for 1% of global emissions, and they're also investing less. But they didn't comply with the Paris Accord, and they said that governments alone are responsible for meeting the Paris targets, so they're not. But recently, like we said in the Kahoot, a Dutch court ruled that Shell must cut their emissions 45% from 2019 levels, compared to their original plan of just 20% from 2016 levels. And Shell is appealing the ruling, which is the last update that I saw. But in general, European nations are regulating their oil and gas companies with more success than American ones. There was an article in the New York Times about how a company like British Petroleum is taking many more positive steps to renewable energy than American companies like Exxon and Chevron.
Okay, so Chevron is a company that didn't get the justice that activists wanted, like with Shell. So Chevron has emissions of 697 million tons of carbon dioxide. And so they only dedicated 0.2% of their investments on low carbon energy, unlike other oil companies so far. And so even worse, they don't have a commitment to reach net zero or as of the Paris Agreement. And so a few years ago, Chevron admitted that Texaco, their merger company, dumped over 18.5 billion gallons of toxic water into the Amazon rainforest, the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest. And so Chevron argued that Texaco spent $40 million cleaning up the area, but in reality, they only deposited their toxic waste and set it on fire. And so the smoke contaminated the atmosphere, even damaging the whole area even worse. And so crops no longer yielded harvest, and fish stocks vanished, and the rainforest began to die off. And Chevron also tried to cover it up and push the blame onto Texaco, and it was taken to court, but unlike Royal Court Shell, Chevron won and justice was never served. And so their actions and ecological consequences of this are still shown in the area till now. And you can see it through the lack of biodiversity and the people still living there.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into the relationship between capitalism and climate change. So some background info. Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. Between excessive capitalism and environmental problems have led to a rise in demand for radical climate action movement. An increase of companies/factories have brought up the global industrial greenhouse gas emission, and capitalism, which is driven by profit and accumulation. Companies may greenwash, which is a false impression or misleading information about how a company's product is environmentally safe.
I will be talking more about the climate aspect of the background info. So first of all, companies actually have control of their own economic resources, but they have control with competition with other companies. And that ultimately sets up these factories to provide products quickly. And they do that to satisfy customers, but that ultimately takes a lot of energy. And also to add on to that, the actual process of providing the products requires a heavy amount of energy, and the energy is used to power machines, and that also uses a lot of electricity. And this increase of demand for energy actually caused the extreme weather events with the rise of the Earth's temperature. And to add on to that, greenhouse gases actually trap heat in the atmosphere and warm the planet. And what this does is it can actually contribute to extreme weather, increased wildfires, and respiratory diseases from smog and air pollution. And finally, our primary source method of generating energy is by burning fossil fuels. And now we have a little fun activity for everyone.
Okay, so this will be like a brief discussion. So imagine how climate change would look like in a socialist society. So after talking about capitalism, we'll now think about how it would look in a socialist society. So socialism is an economic system that advocates in the means of production, distribution, and exchange regulated by the government, rather than private ownerships like capitalism. So the question is, which aspect of society should we keep, capitalism or socialism? So in the matter of time, let's just first review about the cons of capitalism from the previous slides. So you could like share out in the chat or just like talk.
I mean, me, honestly, I think socialism has proved itself to be a system that doesn't work ever. Each time it's tried, it doesn't work. It doesn't really matter what kind of version of socialism that you're using, it doesn't work. So I would say that capitalism be the better system.
Um, I would say that either one, well, depending on your goal, like if you want to achieve some well, it depends. Like for example, capitalism itself, its goal is to, for example, produce like unending production of income and wealth, and obviously generating wealth, because like the point of capitalism is to create wealth instead of for example, as before in the past you had limited wealth, but like with capitalism you're supposed to have unlimited wealth because you can create it. But at the same time, capitalism makes it so that private industries have the incentive to, for example, since they have to create wealth, and that's the whole point of capitalism, they have the incentive to keep creating wealth without really having any concern for other people or for the environment or whatever, which is what we're seeing with climate change. So at the same time, though, since that has happened, it also causes like the frustration and the being so focused on keeping a capitalist system has made it, for example, for the US, based on some information I've seen, well, very recently. So I don't know much about like all of this, but like it has caused like even banks and everything to have to give away money for the economy to have that effect of keeping up growth or displaying growth, but at the same time that's a bubble. So it also has like many counters. Like if you have that philosophy that you always have to generate but you can never go down, which that would be natural, like even in market exchanges, if you have that thinking, then people will just yeah, companies will just try to generate income at the expense of others and pretty much everything else around them as they can and yeah, it seems like the government doesn't really like seeing downward changes when it comes to economy in a capitalist society. So yeah, banks tend to really perform when it comes to that, and yeah, it creates bubbles and potential market crashes or situations that we have seen in the past that haven't resulted in a positive outcome. So it depends. Like economic systems
Um,
have their corner and pros.
okay,
Regulations
great,
are for.
Thank you for your response, Randy.
Okay.
great responses, everyone. But now we do have to move on since we're running short on time.
Okay, so since we're going to be cutting it a little bit close on time, I'm kind of going to try and condense this. So a lot of the things that we just talked about have solutions, but most of them are political, as we've talked about. So one of the most important things you can do to help solve or help this problem is to vote or to support your local politicians that support climate activism. So to support them is to volunteer for their campaign, like text banking, phone banking, canvassing, and so on and so forth. Promoting and supporting politicians who support climate activism is key to making change because you can really talk to them and get them to speak for you as a citizen. 2 is to pressure politicians that don't support climate activism into passing things like the Green New Deal, the Paris Agreement, etc. What you can do is sign petitions, protest at walks, and write letters / call / email to the elected officials. Most of this information is publicly available. Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to Eliza, okay?
Okay, so additionally, you can also, just join youth activist groups. A bunch of them are on the screen right now, and then you can attend climate activism events, and just really in any way you can support groups that are for passing climate change legislation and climate activism. And then just in general, our last point is that just on a small scale, you can alter your lifestyle to reduce your impact and reduce your carbon footprint. But this is as related to politics and corporations, but just reduce, reuse, recycle, go low waste, and yeah, just those kinds of things. And always encourage other people to vote, reduce their impact on the environment, etc. And I don't know if we have time, but if if just one person wants, okay, we don't have time. Cool. So right now it's clear that our current policies are weak and not effective enough to battle climate change. And although they are a start to ensure a sustainable future, we need more like them and to understand that the future of the planet is more important than the profit motive. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I think we have enough time to take 1 or 2 questions if you guys have some. Or just comments in general, if anyone wants to say anything.
I just want to say that the presentation was really good and it was very informative and engaging for us, the audience, and yeah, it was really good.
Thank you very much, Randy.
I will say that you guys did promote your point in an articulate way. I will at least say that I did not agree with anything that you said. However, I think you guys explained yourself well, so I can at least give you guys that.
Thank you very much. We encourage opposing viewpoints. Yeah.
Lisa, you're muted. Hold on.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I was just saying, thank you guys so much for your feedback and comments. And, you know, even if you don't agree with us, it's fine. We're a democracy. So opposing viewpoints are always great. And I think we filled out the feedback forms now.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening. The feedback form is in the chat. Fill it out, please. Thank you very much. Your feedback is appreciated. Thank you for listening.
Again, thank you guys all so much. We'll give you 5 minutes to fill out the form, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk about any glows and grows for the presentation and our team.
We should have a link because it's criminal justice, not climate justice. And I'm mistaken for the sheet.
I don't even know who's speaking, but whoever is, I think, is just breaking up a lot. So they might need some support from the rest.
Yeah, oh. Sorry, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think Pragam was just saying that we should post the link in the chat again. At least that's what I made out of it.
And to make sure that we're all filling out the same form, and that's the climate justice workshop on the bottom.
I had the wrong link. Thank you.
And feel free, if you don't have like any more like comments or feedback, to still just like ask any questions you have about the presentation in general. Okay, I have a question. Nobody suggested the music in the chat like Steven has, but that's fine. We don't have to listen to music. We can talk. So we have immigration justice here with us. So I'm just curious on how do you guys see our issue intersect with your issue, if you saw it at all?
I don't think there's any intersection, at least from my view. Maybe there might be some kind of weird looking ideological intersection on that other side of it. I don't know, but yeah.
I would politely disagree and say that most or a lot of immigrants live in low income neighborhoods, and like climate change deeply impacts low income and like low socioeconomic background neighborhoods. So I would disagree and say there's a lot of intersection.
I want to add on to Marcella because I also agree. I think that there are a lot of refugees and also immigrants that are coming to the U.S. because of their homes that have probably been affected by climate change. So I think that there is a lot of relation in both, but yeah.
I also agree there's a relation when it comes to immigration and climate change. Like for example, with climate change and rising sea levels and everything, like this is a future, for example, sort of connection. But in the future, expected that many people will have to leave their homes and well, their countries and everything, just so they can live in different places that are not affected by the rising sea levels and etc. So, like in that sense, immigration is already tied to climate change in many ways, and also like climate change leads to famine, and also it leads to um well, illness, and also it impacts the economical climate. So with that being said, countries are affected by it, and if countries are affected by it, then the people are affected by it. So people tend to go to countries that can offer them a better quality of life and more opportunities, and so the poorer countries are the ones that are going to be most affected by climate change, and so they're going to have an incentive to get out of those countries and come to more developed countries. So it is closely related in many ways.
Thank you guys all for those opinions on the issues of climate change and immigration. Right now, we're just going to move into any glows and grows before we go back into the main room. So are there any glows and grows about the presentation that you guys can reflect on?
Oh, I can share. I think like a glow is the amount of like information that was in the presentation. Like I think that was like really good, and y'all touched on a lot of aspects of climate change that especially like intersected with what like people normally come into contact with, plus the ways they can help. And also, I think like a couple of grows would be like one, like somebody like checking or like having just somebody watch like the raising hand, because that was kind of confusing to like see that like nobody was on that. So I was just like confused about that. And I think another thing would be like not just like budgeting time, but like about like the call to action section. I think like y'all should have like at least like spent enough time, or at least like had some sort of plan that like if y'all realize y'all are going over, y'all would cut something out in order to share that. Because I think when it comes to like presentations, especially about climate change, that's like the most important part, like what the person who's there can possibly do. Because like research is stuff that like has to be built upon like by yourself, and you have to check those sources. But like having like the call to action and like leaving that seed there is an important thing. That's it.
Thank you, Kelly. That was great advice. We will definitely take that into consideration. Does anybody else? Oh, Marcella.
Thank you, Stephen, for telling me how to raise my hand because I had no clue how to do that. But Glow, you guys did great. It was an amazing presentation. And the only like grow I have is like me being very, very nitpicky. But like maybe like when you're talking about the EU, use a different country than Switzerland, just because like they opted out of the EU. And there's a lot of countries that like don't fit the requirements, and that's the reason why they're not in it. Um, so I just think like, I don't know, add another country to like the example list. But other than that, it was really great.
Yeah, basically, the EU is, if I can just say so, it's almost all of Europe, but Switzerland tries to stay neutral, and they don't really join organizations, so they were even reluctant to join the UN. They joined after North Korea, so they don't really join many organizations. But there's Germany, France, most of the countries are in the EU, and Britain recently left. Brexit, that was the deal. But yeah, the EU is huge, and it's almost all of Europe.
Does anybody else have any feedback?
I just wanted to say that I really liked the discussion questions, and I think that the Kahoot also was like really informative, because like for some of them, like I might not have known the answer, but like once I found out like the answer, like I was like really surprised, even shocked by some of the facts that I found out. So yeah.
Thank you guys so much for the feedback. I think we're going to be heading back into the main room soon. Great job to Immigration Justice. Great job, everybody.
Thank you all so much. Hi everyone, sorry. So if you all wanted to, we can all head out to the main room too. And again, thank you all so much.
You're muted.
Muted. Thank you, Jacob. Welcome back. I think we're just waiting for another group to join us. But how did that feel? Just quick reactions in your visuals, in your videos, in the chat, emoji reactions. It was really great. I didn't even notice how quickly time went by this time, which speaks to how engaged and involved I was in your workshop. So really great job. All right. So I see Zen. So I'm going to pass it over to Zen, who's going to lead us through a debrief of the entire workshop experience.
So that concludes our facilitation workshops tonight, and hope you all learned a lot. And so now, just reflecting off like the entire night, there are several debrief questions that we want you to reflect upon. And starting off, what was it like to develop and facilitate your own issue-focused workshop? And I'll paste the questions into the chat, and you guys can feel free to just share out or just throw in the chat as well. So any volunteers? Madeline?
I thought it was like really fun and just really great and refreshing to be able to produce something that you really care about and to share that with another group of people that you think will also care about that, and then self-reflect afterwards. It was just like a refreshing, like just stance being on the other side of workshop giving.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I definitely agree. Like, it's a great way to carry our passion to as well educate others with our passion and literally basically to deliver out the message to carry out forward. Emma?
Yeah, it was actually an amazing experience because I got a better insight into my topic just by researching and working with other people. But it was a little bit nerve-wracking in the beginning because I was having a lot of like technical issues with my computer. So I was really nervous about how that would play out while I was presenting, but everything worked out at the end, and I'm really happy with our audience and how many people shared out and the answers that we got.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the second questions. So what challenges did your team overcome throughout the experience?
we did the presentation. I think that's about it.
Yeah. So I go ahead, Liana. Am I pronouncing it right, Liana?
It's Liana.
Oh, Liana. Sorry.
Like, I don't know if you mean like experience, like challenges, like throughout creating it, or like challenges in the presentation.
Like, yeah, creating and presenting like the presentation at the same time. Like, how it
Well,
works.
I feel like we probably weren't the only ones who had like technical difficulties while we were presenting, but I was saying like throughout the process, I think it's just like sort of getting everyone like on the same page, because I feel like a lot of times we didn't have a lot of communication or like miscommunication, so I feel like that's something that we had kind of had challenging.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. Like getting the audience engaged in holding certain conversations. Like some conversation may feel like too personal to some to share out. So yeah, that can also be a challenge. And also Daniel said in the chat, we were able to overcome the discussion issue or like the fear we might not get enough discussion with the participants. Yeah, that ties into the factor again of sharing out a person's thoughts, because some conversations might, like as said before, might be too personal to be shared out. And our next question is, what are skills you have had to build to be successful both individually and as a team? And also feel free to just share out or just type in the chat. So McKelly said patience. Communication, public speaking, and organization. Time management, that's all great skills. And Georgia?
I'm just going to speak on behalf of my entire group, but they organized not one, but two extra meetings to get this presentation together. So I think they just really did a great job of organizing and all working together to get this done. I'm really proud of everyone.
Yes, time management. So adding on to public speaking, I feel like public speaking is definitely very important. One of the skills that you have to build in order to basically present. Like I'm facilitating right now, and yeah, I'm like nerve-wracking as well. So definitely stepping out of comfort zone, breaking out of your shell, and yeah, coming out of your shell. So yeah, public speaking, commitment, yeah, holding ourselves accountable for our work that we're doing. Definitely agreed. Organization skills, responsibility, yeah, all great skills. So moving on to our next questions. The fourth question is, what are some key lessons you're walking away from completing this team project? So any new ideas that you have learned, or facts? Any volunteers? So I guess I can share mine. So my key lessons is it's okay to re-educate yourselves and to unlearn just a certain idea that you have been taught in school in the process. Is always remember to re-educate and unlearn certain ideas that you have been taught. So yeah. Madeline?
I think for me, something I learned is just like, I don't know, I feel like I've been like avoiding trying to facilitate things, like events or conversations, even though like I know that I will be fine. And I think that this experience just, I feel like just gave me the opportunity to say like, hey, it's not so bad. And if you actually care about the topic, then it's worth being a little nervous for. And I think that I wouldn't have necessarily had that push to go and do that if not for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Leanna?
I was just gonna say that like in like presenting, like it's actually like, if you're prepared, like if you yourself are prepared, like it's gonna go better than you expect it to be. But also like I was going to say that something I realized was that we all have different political opinions, similar to what Randy said in the comments. And I feel like for me, it really helped me to like build a stronger opinion and perspective on like what I believe and what I think is right. So I think that really helped me a lot.
Yeah, definitely agree. And for the sake of time, we're just going to move on to the next question. So our next question is, what work still needs to be done to be ready to facilitate these workshops for schools and community-based organizations this fall? What groups should we be targeting for this workshop? Any volunteers?
Now wait, repeat that real quick. I think you like.
So the question is also in the chat. So what do you want to take this next? What work still needs to be done to be ready to facilitate these workshops with schools and community-based organizations this fall? What groups should we be targeting for these workshops? So basically, who should be our audience, and how should we, what still needs to be done in order to reach out to these groups of people?
I mean, I would say kids, definitely our age, and social media, I think would be the best outreach in a sense if that's what you're asking.
Yes, definitely agree. Like to the general public as a whole, like everyone should be, it doesn't hurt to be to educate yourselves on these topics maybe. So yeah. So our next discussion question is, what insights do you have for your own personal growth as a leader? Alisa, I don't know if I pronounced that right.
It's okay. It's Alyssa.
Alyssa.
I'd say probably just like, like somebody said before, I don't remember who said it, but once you prepare everything, you're just so much more confident in yourself, and it flows very smoothly. And insight for personal growth as a leader, listen to other people's opinions and share yours. Don't be afraid to say how you feel, but also to listen to what others are saying and really take it in and come to something that benefits the whole group.
Yeah, definitely agree. Marcella?
I think that for the insights for your own personal growth, I think a big thing for me is kind of being okay with out of like YVote meetings. I think like a big thing was like I didn't want to like force my group to like meet with us like outside. So I was like trying to make sure we get it all done, and we still ended up having like 3 meetings like this weekend, like to make sure that we like got everything done. And so like learning that like it doesn't have to be perfect and that's okay to go outside of the meeting is like a big part of my own growth.
Yes, definitely agree. And we'll move on to our last and final debrief questions. How does the work you have done towards this project fit into the bigger picture of creating change?
I mean, the entire idea of organization was, I think, is built into this project, and I think that's something that we could bring to make whatever political change we wanted to make.
Yeah, I agree with what Jacob said, and just to add on to him, I feel like this process is important step of like educating others to carry on that message, because change starts with educating ourselves and then the public. So I think this is like a stepping stone towards educating others for certain issues that we're discussing. Any volunteers? Anyone else who would like to share?
Yeah, pretty much with what you and Jake said. When it comes to organizing and also being able to change, instill change into society, we have to change ourselves and also be able to learn and then teach other people and include them when it comes to the changes and everything we're trying to achieve. So it does, for example, we were able to work as a team. We're able to learn individually and also teach one another, and we're able to teach other people through our work and through our research. So pretty much it translates to the whole thing of organizing, being able to teach other people about, I don't know, maybe our goals or, well, the thing that we're trying to accomplish, and pretty much all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Randy. So for the sake of time, if you haven't like had a chance to share it out, please type your answer in the chat, and I'll pass it on to Mello or Sanda for our next activity.
Yes.
All right,
All right.
messed
So
up a
I'm
little bit.
just gonna
Wait,
do.
Mello, just I messed up a little bit. I forgot that we needed to move back the room, so I'm gonna need another minute or two if you
Yeah.
can.
All right, got it. Definitely.
Or something.
No worries. I got you. So thank you so much, number one, to Zen leading us through that debrief. Clap it up for him. He did a wonderful job. And I just want to affirm all of you who felt super nervous coming into this experience, not just in YVote, but facilitating your workshops. You all did really amazing things and really shifted in your own development. So I hope you recognize that and honor that that is something that matters. As far as this experience, it was only an hour, but getting through that 45 minutes of facilitating something, even if your bit was like 5 minutes, that's substantial push for you as in public speaking and engaging with the group. There's so many different things that are going through a facilitator's mind. So I hope that one of the connections that y'all are making also is that facilitating workshops demand two things from you. It demands you as a facilitator to be mindful of those emotions that come up before you're facilitating. So all of those feelings are valid. It demands you to acknowledge how comfortable you are in facilitating, especially on issues around social justice, because you know that there are people with opposing opinions. You know that there are people with real life experiences that may be coming to your workshop to voice all of those different opinions and backgrounds and trying to do due diligence by them. So that's number one, like recognizing that uncomfortableness is a huge part of facilitation. And I'm losing my train of thought. I think I wanted to say one more thing, but facilitation really allows you to put a mirror in front of yourself and allow yourself to name the things that you need to know more about before you actually lead a workshop on it. So the workshop wasn't just about educating peers, it's about educating yourself. So let's, remind ourselves that that was also part of a goal of this experience. You were all creating workshops on issues that some of you might know a lot around, but a lot of us still have so much to learn. Even those who are experts in the field have a lot to learn from the people who are most impacted by them. So I just want to acknowledge that y'all did some really great work for the last time. Maybe I'm going to say it a million more times in closing, but really, really congratulate you and your peers on coming together and being able to facilitate such amazing work.
Almost there.
Almost there. Got it. And so Sandra's getting ready to break us out into groups. So I hope that all of you have your group attire, which is the color that your team decided on. You're going to go into your breakout room. So everybody, in order to participate in this, please turn on your cameras, because it's not going to be super engaging and sexy if half of your group is off camera. But we'll push through anyway. But I really want to do a last push to please turn your cameras on for at least this piece, so that way we can capture the full group.
We're going to open up the rooms. If you got something inside, and thank you to our guests who are now leaving. So special.
Yes,
to have
thank you
here.
so much.
If you have a wrong group assignment, because we were doing this super swiftly, stay and we'll make sure to transfer you over. So breakout rooms are open.
Hello. You guys all did amazing. You guys all did so great. And does everyone have a everyone have a red shirt?
Not me, so I'm leaving the room.
I was gonna ask too. I was gonna say, Bella, do you have a red shirt?
Oh, you have to go with a group where their color is gray.
We can paint it on, like we can draw on it or something.
I could just go
we'll
like
Photoshop it. Okay, so
let's
any
all try to
ideas?
have our
Any,
cameras on.
Any group formations? Well, what are you guys thinking?
Who's taking the picture? I'm not a
I can take a
screenshot on my
picture.
computer, so yeah. Namra and Jennifer. Oh wait, Namra's not in our group. Namra, what group are you in? Are you with us? Oh, you're in immigration. Okay, let me move you. If they take your picture without you, that'd be sad. Okay. So, all right, let's get our picture ready. Wait, oh yeah. What are we doing? Are we doing regular, like boring smiles, or are we doing silly faces, or what are we doing?
Kind of basic. So what are we thinking? Like, are we thinking like Power Ranger poses, or like what we thinking? Like,
Not Power Rangers.
like what we doing? Cause y'all really better have me like sit on this couch and like throw it back. Come on, what we doing? What we doing? Like peace signs. What we doing? Smiling.
You guys want to try multiple? We could photobomb you. Like you could just take screenshots now, and then we could just take a bad picture if y'all was posting on social media. Like we could do that. All right, so smile one.
I guess that's what we're doing.
So we're gonna smile on 1, 2, 3.
And I think we could take like a yeah, I got it. And then we could take like an up close picture or something.
Right, Mateus, like we're so basic. Like Mateus, you have to give us what's our next pose? Give us the face for our next pose.
It's the up close picture stuff.
Fisheye like thing where we're all up in the camera.
Give what? I didn't see that. Wait, what'd you say, Nika?
Just like I don't know what we're doing. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, we're taking a picture.
Yeah, we're doing the up close picture now. Like I don't know if you guys have seen that Vine where it's like, guess what I'm eating, and then like it's one of that girls says like I'm eating popcorn.
All right.
Maybe not, but it's like two kids and like they have their face like on the screen like that. Anyway, that's what we're gonna do.
A close-up silly face. Jennifer's dog is featuring the picture. I love this. Okay, if you have pets, Mohammed, get the fish tank out. We're doing a pet photo now.
Not the fish tank.
We're doing a pet photo. If you have a pet, get the pet. We're doing a pet photo.
So take the fish out the tank too.
Does your brother count? Listen, if your brother's in the room, he could join too. We're doing a pet photo. All dogs, cats, fishes, lions, whatever it is. Get them in the picture. Stuffed animals, yes. Oh my goodness! Look at Alexander's dog. Oh God, this is too cute. Okay, are the doggies ready?
Doesn't someone have a pigeon in here?
Stop.
Someone has a pigeon. I forget who, but someone has a pigeon.
I have a pigeon, but she's sleeping right now.
Stop. Jennifer has the whole zoo. Like, not the pigeon and the dog. Okay, are the doggies ready?
Yeah.
Oh, last 30 seconds. Ready, doggies? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. You got it, Steven?
Yeah, I got all.
Dimitri, I don't appreciate your head pose, okay? Because all I saw was your forehead, and it was really disrespectful to the dogs. So I just want to say that. Oh, I'm gonna miss you guys. Okay, 15 seconds, close out. Bye.
Bye. Oh wait, I have